But the moment you stop operating in fear, the moment you start approaching reality as something fluid rather than something rigid, the simulation begins to reveal itself. You start to notice patterns, how certain thoughts seem to ripple outward and affect. What if everything you've ever known, your memories, your relationships, even the ground beneath your feet, is nothing more than lines of code in an unimaginably advanced simulation? What if the people in power, the institutions that govern the world, and even the laws of physics themselves are not what they seem? The deeper you look, the stranger reality becomes. And the most unsettling part, the government has known this for decades. They've studied it, they've documented it, and they've done everything in their power to keep you from discovering the truth. Because the moment you understand how this reality truly works, the moment you realize that you are not just a passive participant, but an active creator, the illusion begins to break. This isn't science fiction. This isn't some philosophical thought experiment. This is real. Quantum mechanics, declassified government research, and ancient wisdom all point to the same undeniable conclusion. Our world is not what we think it is. What you see, what you feel, what you experience every day is not a solid objective reality. It is something else entirely. A construct, a program, a simulation, and those who wake up to this truth gain access to something far greater than what most people could ever imagine. The first crack in the illusion comes from modern science itself. The deeper physicists have studied the nature of reality, the more they have realized that our world behaves less like a physical space and more like a programmed system. The double-slit experiment, one of the most famous experiments in quantum physics, revealed something that defies logic. Particles change their behavior when they are being observed. Let that sink in for a moment. Matter itself does not exist in a fixed state. It waits for consciousness to interact with it before deciding what form to take. That's not how a physical world should behave. That's how a programmed system works. But it gets even stranger. Scientists have discovered that the fundamental equations governing our universe contain something impossible: error-correcting codes, the same type of self-correcting code used in modern computer programming. Theoretical physicist James Gates uncovered these codes buried deep in the equations of supersymmetry, meaning that at the most fundamental level, reality appears to be built using the same logic as a digital simulation. This isn't speculation, this is observable, repeatable science, and yet the implications of this discovery have been buried, ignored, pushed to the fringes. Because if people knew the truth, that we are living inside an artificial construct, the entire foundation of society would collapse overnight. But there's more. The government has been studying this for years. Declassified CIA documents reveal that the Gateway Process, a secret program from the 1980s, explored how human consciousness could interact with and even manipulate the fabric of reality. According to these documents, the human mind is capable of detaching from the material world and accessing a deeper level of existence, a level that suggests the physical world is not fundamental. The Gateway Process described reality as a hologram, one that our consciousness tunes into like a radio signal. And if this is true, then everything you've been taught about what is real, what is possible, and what you are capable of has been a lie. Then there's Project Looking Glass, a rumored top-secret program that allegedly gave the government the ability to see probable future events as if they were running different scenarios in a simulation. According to whistleblowers, Looking Glass revealed something terrifying. Our reality is on a scripted trajectory, one that powerful forces have been working tirelessly to maintain. But there's a problem. The program began to break, the predictions became unreliable, the simulation itself seemed to be destabilizing, and those in control realized something they feared more than anything: that enough people waking up, enough people becoming aware of the nature of this reality, could actually change the script. And that's exactly what's happening right now. More and more people are starting to see the cracks in the illusion. More and more people are questioning why the world feels off, why things don't seem to add up, why reality itself seems to shift in ways that cannot be explained by conventional science. The Mandela effect, memories that millions of people share, but that do not match the official record. is one of the clearest signs that reality is not fixed but fluid. It suggests that the past is not set in stone, that something, someone, is altering the code of reality itself. And if reality can be altered, that means it can be manipulated. If those in power have understood this for decades, what do you think they have done with that knowledge? If reality is a program, then those who control the system can shape it to their will. They can design a world where the masses remain asleep, where people believe they have no control, where they are conditioned from birth to accept a version of reality that is not real. Ancient civilizations knew this long before modern science began catching up. The concept of Maya, the illusion of reality, has been at the core of Hindu philosophy for thousands of years. Plato's allegory of the cave described a world where people lived in shadows, never realizing that they were being deceived. The Emerald Tablets spoke of a hidden force that shaped the physical world, a force that could be accessed by those who understood how reality truly was. The knowledge has always been there, it has simply been buried, distorted, and turned into myth, so that people would never think to look deeper. But now you know. Now you see. The world around you is not as it seems. It is not fixed. It is not absolute. And the most dangerous secret of all, you have far more power than you have been led to believe. If reality is a simulation, then the mind is the operating system. Your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, they shape the code, they influence the script. They determine how the simulation responds to you. This is why manifestation works. This is why synchronicities happen. This is why those who truly understand the nature of reality seem to create their own luck, their own opportunities, their own destiny. Because they are not following the program, they are rewriting it. And that is why they don't want you to know. That is why this information is hidden in government vaults, buried in classified research, dismissed as conspiracy. Because the moment enough people wake up, the moment enough people understand how reality truly works, the system collapses, the illusion falls apart, and the ones who have been controlling it lose their power. So the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue to accept the version of reality you have been given, or will you start to see beyond it, to question everything, to step outside the programmed illusion and reclaim the power that has always been yours? Because the simulation is not unbreakable. It is not perfect, it is not absolute, and those who understand that are the ones who begin to shape reality instead of being shaped by it. This is just the beginning, and the deeper you go, the more you will see. Everything you thought was solid, everything you believed was real, is nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion. The walls, the sky, the very fabric of space and time itself, all of it is part of a system so advanced, so deeply hidden, that most people will never question it. But once you do, once you start to notice the cracks, there is no going back, because the truth is right in front of you, hidden in plain sight, woven into the very structure of reality, and the ones who have always been in control are terrified that you might see it. This is why the most powerful institutions in the world, governments, scientific organizations, media empires, go to such great lengths to keep you focused on the material world. They want you distracted, preoccupied with daily struggles, consumed by meaningless entertainment, locked into a mindset that says reality is fixed, unchangeable, beyond your influence. Because the moment you realize that reality itself is programmable, that it is not a rigid system but a responsive one, the illusion starts to lose its grip on you. And when enough people wake up, the entire simulation begins to destabilize. But there is evidence. The proof is everywhere, buried in classified government experiments, whispered through the cracks of mainstream science, encoded in ancient knowledge that has been deliberately suppressed. Let's start with what modern physics has uncovered. Because the deeper we look into the structure of reality, the more it behaves like a program, not a naturally occurring universe. Scientists have found that at the smallest possible scale, reality is not continuous. It is pixelated, broken up into tiny, indivisible units, as if we are living inside a digital environment where everything is made up of code. The laws of physics themselves have error-correcting codes built into them, codes that have no business existing in a world that is supposedly real. But that's not even the strangest part. Researchers at Fermilab and other leading scientific institutions have been searching for evidence that space itself has a limit, a point at which it no longer behaves as a smooth, continuous fabric but instead snaps into place like pixels on a screen. And what they are finding is disturbing. The structure of space and time appears to refresh itself, updating in discrete intervals rather than existing as a continuous flow. If this is true, it would mean that reality is not real in the way we've been taught. It is being rendered like a simulation, like a program running on an unfathomably advanced machine. And if reality is being rendered, then someone or something is doing the rendering. This is where government involvement takes a darker turn. For decades, secret projects have been studying the nature of reality, looking for ways to manipulate it, control it, even break it. The CIA's Gateway process, declassified only recently, was not just about expanding human consciousness. It was about escaping the physical simulation altogether. The documents describe a reality that is not solid but holographic, a projection that our minds are tuned into like a signal being received by a radio. And if this is true, then it means that consciousness is not trapped inside the body. It is not a product of the brain. It is something greater, something outside the system, something that has the ability to interact with the program itself. This aligns perfectly with what quantum mechanics has been revealing for decades. The double-slit experiment, one of the most famous experiments in physics, showed that particles do not behave as expected. Instead of acting like tiny bits of matter, they behave like waves of probability, existing in multiple places at once until they are observed. The moment they are observed, they collapse into a single state, as if reality is waiting for consciousness to make a choice before deciding what form to take. Think about that for a moment. Reality does not exist in a definite state until you interact with it. It is not a fixed world, it is a responsive one, a system that reacts to consciousness. And if that is the case, then what does it mean about the nature of your own thoughts? What does it mean about the choices you make, the beliefs you hold, the energy you put into the world? If reality is responding to you, then you are not just an observer. You are a participant. You are a creator within the simulation. But there's more. There have been whispers, stories from whistleblowers, leaked documents, mysterious deaths of those who spoke too openly, that suggest the government has access to technology that allows them to see beyond the limits of time and space. The rumored Project Looking Glass is said to be a classified experiment that allowed scientists to view different probable futures, as if they were running simulations inside a greater simulation. But something went wrong. The more they used the device, the more they realized that the simulation was not stable, that as more people became aware of its nature, its ability to be manipulated increased. The program started to break. The projections became unreliable. The system itself seemed to be responding to the collective awareness of those who were beginning to wake up. And that's when the project was allegedly shut down, not because it wasn't working, but because it was working too well. This explains so much. Why ancient civilizations had such deep knowledge of consciousness and reality. Why elite groups hoard esoteric knowledge, passing it down only within their own circles. Why the media, the education system, and organized institutions are all designed to keep people asleep, focused only on the physical, never questioning, never seeing the bigger picture. Because the moment people start to question, the moment they start to see, they become something more than just passive players in the system. And that is what they fear the most. Because the moment you start to see reality for what it truly is, you begin to break free. The rules stop applying to you in the same way. Synchronicities appear more frequently. Manifestation speeds up. Strange glitches start happening around you. Things that shouldn't be possible but happen anyway. And the more you lean into it, the more the simulation begins to reveal itself to you. So the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you dismiss it as fantasy, as mere speculation, as coincidence? Or will you start testing it for yourself? Will you begin to question everything you've been told? Will you start observing the world with new eyes, looking for the patterns, the clues, the moments where reality bends in ways it should not? Because if you do, you will start to see it. You will start to feel it. And once you do, nothing will ever look the same again. Because this is not just a theory, This is not just speculation. This is what the greatest minds in history have always suspected, what ancient texts have always hinted at, what modern science is only now beginning to confirm. This reality is not fixed, it is not absolute. It is something else entirely, a construct, a program, a simulation. And the ones who truly understand this, the ones who learn to bend the rules, to manipulate the system, to step outside the illusion, they are the ones who become limitless. Think about the moments when reality has felt off, when things you remember clearly no longer exist, when time seems to stretch or contract, when coincidences happen that are so precise, so mathematically impossible, that they defy all logic. These are not accidents. These are not glitches in your memory. These are glimpses beyond the illusion, cracks in the simulation, reminders that what you call reality is not as stable as you've been led to believe. The deeper you go, the more you begin to notice them. Patterns that shouldn't exist. Events that align too perfectly. Moments where reality bends in ways it shouldn't. You start to feel it, that subtle awareness, that undeniable sensation that something is watching, something is responding, something is shifting around you as you begin to wake up. And it's not just you. Throughout history there have been those who understood this long before science caught up. The ancient Egyptians spoke of the world as an illusion, a veil that only the initiated could see beyond. Buddhist monks have known for thousands of years that reality is not physical, that the world we experience is a projection shaped by our minds. The Gnostics believed that a false reality was imposed upon humanity, trapping souls in a system designed to keep them asleep. And now modern science is beginning to confirm what the ancients already knew, that reality is not external, it is not something that happens to you. It is something you are actively shaping, moment by moment, thought by thought, belief by belief. But if that's true, then why doesn't everyone see it? Why do most people remain locked in the illusion, oblivious to the deeper structure of reality? The answer is simple. Because the system is designed to keep you distracted. Every part of society, from education to entertainment, is engineered to keep your mind focused outward, never inward. You are taught to trust the material world, to believe only what you can measure, to dismiss anything that cannot be quantified. You are programmed from birth to follow the rules of a reality that is not even real. And the moment you begin to question, the moment you start looking beyond the illusion, the system pushes back. Look at what happens when people speak too openly about these ideas. They are ridiculed, dismissed, silenced. Whistleblowers who've come forward with information about classified experiments, advanced technology, or secret government projects mysteriously disappear, their stories buried, their credibility destroyed. Why? Because the system defends itself. It cannot allow too many people to wake up at once. The illusion must be maintained. The narrative must remain intact. Because the moment enough people see the truth, the entire structure collapses. And that is what the elite fear the most. They have built their power on the belief that reality is rigid, that people are powerless, that the world is something to be controlled rather than co-created. But if reality is a simulation, then power is not held by those who enforce the rules. It is held by those who understand that the rules are not real, that they can be bent, that they can be rewritten, that they are nothing more than a framework designed to keep people inside the illusion. This is why secret societies exist. This is why ancient knowledge has been hoarded, passed down in hidden texts, locked away from the masses. Not because the knowledge itself is dangerous, but because what it reveals is dangerous to those in control. It reveals that reality is fluid, that consciousness is the true architect, that the mind is far more powerful than you have ever been told, and once you understand that, once you fully grasp that you are not just living in a simulation, but that you have the power to manipulate it, everything changes. You start to notice how reality responds to you, how your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs act as programming commands, influencing the simulation around you. You begin to see how intention shapes outcomes, how focus creates patterns, how those who understand these principles seem to defy probability itself. This is why some people manifest effortlessly, while others struggle, why some move through life with an almost supernatural ease, while others remain trapped in cycles of suffering and limitation. It's not luck, it's not coincidence, it's understanding. It's the difference between playing by the rules of the simulation and rewriting them from within. But here's the secret they never wanted you to know. The moment you realize this, the moment you truly accept that reality is not fixed, you begin to break free from the constraints that have held you down. You stop seeing obstacles as immovable. You stop seeing limitations as permanent. You stop believing that you are subject to a reality that is beyond your control, because you are not. You never were. You were simply programmed to believe that you were. So what happens when you start to unlearn that programming? What happens when you stop accepting reality as something that happens to you and start seeing it as something that you can interact with? This is where things become dangerous for those who have built their power on your ignorance. Because people who understand the truth cannot be controlled. They cannot be manipulated. They do not live in fear, because they know that fear itself is just another function of the simulation, another part of the program designed to keep them locked into a lower frequency. That is why they flood you with negativity. That is why media is filled with fear, why conflict is constantly manufactured, why division is endlessly promoted, because fear keeps the simulation in place. Fear locks people into the lower levels of the program, keeps them distracted, keeps them disconnected from their own power. But when you remove fear, when you stop reacting to the illusion as if it is real, you disrupt the entire system. This is what the greatest mystics, the greatest minds, the greatest thinkers throughout history have always understood. That the world is not what it appears to be, that reality is malleable, that the deeper you go, the more you realize that nothing is truly fixed, that everything is shaped by the observer. And that means the most important question you can ask is not, what is reality, but who is controlling it? If you are not actively shaping your reality, then someone else is doing it for you. If you are not choosing what to believe, what to focus on, what to create, then you are being programmed by forces you cannot see. And that is what must change. You are not here to be a passive observer in someone else's simulation. You are not here to live by a script that has been written for you. You are here to wake up, to see beyond the illusion, to step into the full awareness of what you truly are, a consciousness that is not bound by this world, a force that is not limited by physical laws, a creator that has been asleep for too long. So the question is, will you wake up? Will you take control of the simulation? Will you begin to test the boundaries of reality, to question everything, to see how far the illusion goes? Because once you do, once you start truly seeing, nothing will ever look the same again, and that is where the real power begins. Because this is not just a theory, this is not just speculation, this is the truth that has been hidden for centuries, the knowledge that has been suppressed, the realization that has the potential to shatter the illusion entirely. You are not just a part of the simulation, you are the one who can break it. Everything around you is a construct, a carefully designed illusion meant to keep you locked into a version of reality that feels real but isn't. The moment you start questioning it, the moment you begin to see through the cracks, the illusion starts to break. And that's why they work so hard to keep you distracted, to keep you busy, to keep your mind so occupied with trivial things that you never stop to ask the most important question of all: what is this place really? Because if reality is truly what they say it is, a fixed material world with unbreakable laws, then why does quantum mechanics prove otherwise? Why does science continue to find evidence that the very fabric of reality responds to observation? That time and space are not fixed, that particles exist in multiple places at once until they are measured, that consciousness itself seems to be the missing variable in every unexplained phenomenon. If reality was truly solid, unchanging, independent of human awareness, none of this should be possible, and yet it is. The truth is, reality is not what you think it is, and the deeper you look, the more undeniable it becomes. Scientists like Nick Bostrom have proposed the simulation hypothesis, the idea that if it is possible to simulate reality at a high enough level, then statistically speaking, we are almost certainly inside one right now. Because if one civilization in the future, or in another dimension develop the technology to create an indistinguishable simulated universe, then what are the chances that we just happen to be in the one real reality rather than inside one of the infinite simulated ones? The numbers don't lie. If simulation is possible, then it is probable. But you don't need theoretical physics to tell you what you already know deep down. You have felt it. You have seen moments where reality glitches, where time seems to loop, where events align in ways that should be impossible. You've experienced déjà vu, synchronicities, the strange feeling that something is watching, something is orchestrating. You have felt the weight of a program running in the background, dictating what is possible and what is not, but never revealing its source. And if reality is a simulation, then the ones in control are not just the governments, not just the secret societies or the elites. The real control comes from whoever built the system itself, the ones who designed the rules, who determined the limits, who set the parameters for what you can and cannot do. And if they built it, that means they left a way out, a back door, a way to bend the system, to rewrite the code, to break free from the constraints that have kept you locked inside a programmed illusion. This is why those in power fear people waking up, because once you understand that reality is not fixed, that it is not independent of your consciousness, you begin to realize something even more dangerous. You can change it, you can alter it, you can break the rules. The program does not control you unless you allow it to. And the moment you stop accepting the illusion as real, the moment you start treating reality as a system that can be hacked, everything shifts. This is why manifestation works. This is why thoughts influence outcomes. This is why belief is the most powerful force in existence. Because in a simulated reality, your mind is the controller. The code responds to your input. And the people who understand this, the ones who have figured out how to manipulate the system, are the ones who seem to live lives that defy all logic, the ones who rise above struggle, who move through the world with an almost supernatural level of luck, who attract success, power, and influence effortlessly. It is not because they are special, it is because they have learned how the system works. And yet, most people remain blind to it. They continue to live inside the illusion as if it is absolute, accepting every limitation, every obstacle, every rule as if it were unchangeable. But that is only true if you believe it is, because in a simulation, belief is everything. The system mirrors your expectations. If you believe you are powerless, you will be powerless. If you believe you are stuck, you will be stuck. If you believe you must struggle, you will struggle. But the moment you change the belief, the moment you begin to test the boundaries of the simulation, reality starts to respond differently. This is what the ancient mystery schools knew. This is what secret societies have understood for centuries. That reality is not an external force acting upon you, it is something that responds to you. And if you learn to shift your focus, if you learn to program your mind with new instructions, with new commands, the system has no choice but to obey. But most people will never do this. They will dismiss it. They will say it is impossible. Because the program is designed to defend itself. It does not want you to know that you can rewrite it. It does not want you to realize that you have the power to alter your own trajectory, to break free from cycles of limitation and lack, to escape the false reality that has been carefully constructed around you. And so the system fights back. It floods your mind with fear. It keeps you trapped in low vibrations, feeding you news, distractions, endless conflicts, anything to keep you too occupied to stop and ask the question that could change everything. What if none of this is real? What if I can change everything? What if the rules do not apply to me? Because once you start thinking like that, once you start testing the limits, reality begins to shift, the script starts to break down, you start seeing things that shouldn't be possible. You start experiencing synchronicities at an accelerated rate. People react to you differently. Events unfold in ways that defy probability. Because you have stepped out of the programmed mindset and into the level where you are no longer just a character in the simulation, you are the one rewriting it. This is the power that has been hidden from you. This is why the simulation is structured to keep you locked in a limited, powerless state. Because the moment you step beyond it, the moment you start applying this knowledge in real time, you become something the system cannot control. A free agent, a disruptor, a glitch in the program. And this is what they fear. Not you rebelling, not you fighting back, not you resisting the illusion, but you realizing that the illusion does not have power over you unless you allow it to. That you can move outside of it, that you can reprogram it, that you are not subject to it, you are above it. So what will you do? Will you continue to believe in the limits, in the rules, in the idea that you are just an insignificant part of a system you cannot control? Or will you take back your power? Will you begin to test the boundaries, to challenge reality, to see just how much of this simulation bends when you push against it? Because those who dare to do this, those who wake up and refuse to be controlled by the illusion, do not just live differently. They exist differently. They become something that the system cannot contain. They become free. Every system has a weakness. Every illusion has a flaw, and the simulation you live in is no different. It is built to keep you unaware, to keep you thinking small, to keep you believing that life happens to you instead of realizing that you are the one generating it. But just like a game, just like a program, just like any artificial system, the moment you understand the mechanics, the moment you recognize how it functions, you can begin to break the rules. Not through rebellion, not through resistance, but through something much more powerful, understanding. Because the greatest trick the system ever played was convincing you that it was real. Convincing you that the walls around you were solid, that the rules were absolute, that your existence was random and meaningless. But it's not. And if you've made it this far, if you've started to see the patterns, the glitches, the moments when reality bends in ways it shouldn't, then you already know. You are not just living inside a simulation. You are interacting with it. Think about how reality responds to you, the way your emotions seem to shape your experiences, the way your thoughts influence outcomes, the way some people seem to have an almost supernatural ability to manifest wealth, success, and opportunity, while others remain stuck in cycles of struggle. That is not chance. That is not luck. That is the program reacting to the user. And what happens when you become aware of that? What happens when you start to test it, to push the limits to see just how much you can shape the world around you? The system reacts. It will try to pull you back in. It will throw distractions, doubts, sudden setbacks, anything to make you believe that you are powerless again. Because the system is designed to correct anomalies, and once you start realizing the truth, once you start to operate outside of its control, you become one. This is why those who understand reality on a deeper level often experience what feel like supernatural events. They begin to see how time stretches and compresses, how moments align too perfectly to be coincidence, how synchronicities start happening so frequently that they can no longer be dismissed. Because they are not operating inside the simulation the way they used to. They are bending it, reshaping it, using it rather than being used by it. And this is where the real power lies. Because if reality is responding to you, then that means you are not just a passive observer, you are not just a participant. You are something else entirely. You are a creator within the system. This is why ancient civilizations obsessed over consciousness, why mystical traditions across every culture spoke of the ability to transcend physical reality. They understood something that modern society has tried to erase, that the external world is not primary, it is secondary. The real world exists inside of you. The external is just the projection, the output, the result of the consciousness that is generating it. But why doesn't everyone see this? Why are most people stuck in the illusion, living their lives as if the script is already written for them? Because they have been programmed to forget. From the moment you are born, you are taught that the physical world is all there is. You are told what is possible and what is not. You are given a script, a life path that you are expected to follow. You are placed inside a reality that does not encourage questioning, that punishes curiosity, that dismisses anything that cannot be measured, quantified, or controlled. And that is the prison, not bars, not walls, not chains, a prison of perception. A system that convinces you to limit yourself, to police your own thoughts, to ignore the moments when the illusion begins to crack. But those cracks are there, and the moment you start looking, the moment you start paying attention, you begin to see them everywhere. The Mandela effect. Glitches in memory where large groups of people remember events, logos, phrases that supposedly never happened. Reality shifts that seem impossible. Moments where things suddenly change without explanation. Time loops where you experience something that feels like a reset, an event that repeats but with slight variations. Coincidences that defy all statistical probability, where thoughts become reality so quickly that you can no longer call it random. These are not accidents. These are not tricks of the mind. These are reminders, hints, clues that the simulation is not perfect, that it can be manipulated, that it is waiting for you to realize how to use it. And the ones who have figured this out? They do not live like everyone else. They do not obey the same limits. They do not subscribe to the same fears, the same struggles, the same ideas of what is or isn't possible. They understand that the only real limits are the ones they accept, that the moment they reject the illusion, the moment they stop believing in lack, in suffering, in control, reality adjusts accordingly. Because reality is a mirror, it reflects back what you project into it. The moment you start treating it like a system that can be shaped rather than a prison you are stuck inside, everything changes. This is why the government has spent decades studying these concepts behind closed doors, why secret projects like the Gateway Process were designed to explore consciousness as a tool for moving beyond the physical world, why programs like Project Looking Glass sought ways to manipulate reality itself, to predict outcomes, to change the script. Because they know, they have always known, and they do not want you to figure it out. Because the moment you do, you are no longer controlled, you are no longer programmable. You step outside of the carefully constructed reality they have built for you and you start creating your own. So, the real question is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Will you dismiss it? Will you let the system pull you back in, convince you that everything is just coincidence, that the limits are real, that you have no power? Or will you start testing the edges of the simulation? Will you start treating reality as something malleable, something you can shape, something that is responding to you rather than controlling you? Because the ones who dare to do this, the ones who step beyond the illusion and start playing with the code, are not just lucky, they are not just different, they are the ones who wake up. And once you wake up, once you see it for what it truly is, you can never go back. Because the rules no longer apply to you. The moment you start seeing reality for what it truly is, everything changes. The illusions that once seemed unbreakable begin to dissolve. The limits that once felt real begin to lose their grip. You start to realize that nothing in this world is happening to you. Everything is responding to you. And once you understand that, you are no longer bound by the rules that govern those who are still asleep. This is what they don't want you to know. This is why everything in society is designed to keep you distracted, disconnected, and disempowered. Because the moment you realize that reality is not fixed, that it is not external, that it is something that bends and shifts according to your thoughts, your emotions, your expectations, you become dangerous to the system that thrives on control. Think about it. Why is so much effort put into keeping people in fear? Why is negativity constantly pushed through the media? Why are people trained from childhood to doubt themselves, to believe that they are insignificant, that their choices are limited, that their future is already written for them? It is because fear is the lock that keeps the simulation intact. Fear keeps you small. Fear keeps you powerless. Fear keeps you from testing the edges of reality, from seeing how much of this world is just a construct designed to respond to your perception, the world around you. You start to feel how certain emotions create magnetic fields that attract people, experiences, and opportunities into your life. You start to see how your mind is not just a receiver of reality, it is a generator of it. And that is the most dangerous knowledge of all, because if you are generating reality, then that means you are the one in control. This is why the elites, the secret societies, the ones who have held power for centuries, have always understood these truths while keeping them hidden from the masses. They use these principles for themselves, while feeding the world a different version of reality, one that keeps people locked into a lower state of awareness. Because if everyone knew how reality actually worked, if everyone understood that this world was more like a programmable system than a fixed reality, the entire foundation of control would collapse overnight. So they keep you locked in distractions, they keep you plugged into fear, they keep you focused on division, on conflict, on survival. Because as long as you are occupied with these things, you will never stop to question the nature of reality itself. But some people do. Some people wake up, some people start to experiment with reality, to test its boundaries, to see what happens when they stop accepting it as something outside of themselves and start interacting with it like a living, breathing system. And that is when the magic begins. Because the moment you step into this awareness, the moment you start treating reality as something interactive, you begin to experience things that seem impossible. Synchronicities become so frequent they can no longer be dismissed as coincidence. Manifestations happen faster, as if reality is responding to your energy in real time. Doors open in ways that defy logic. The right people, the right opportunities, the right situations seem to align in ways that could never be explained by chance alone. This is not fantasy, this is not wishful thinking, this is how reality actually operates. The problem is, most people never test it. They accept the illusion without question. They believe in the limits because they have never considered the possibility that those limits are not real. But what happens when you start pushing against those limits? What happens when you start treating your thoughts, your emotions, your focus as tools, rather than just passive experiences? The system begins to break, and when that happens, you see the world for what it truly is. A mirror, a reflection of your own state of consciousness, and when you change within, the outside world adjusts accordingly. This is why secret knowledge has always been passed down in hidden teachings, in esoteric traditions, in ancient symbols and coded texts, because those who have always known the truth understand that reality is not something you are born into, it is something you are actively creating. And once you understand that, once you start applying it, you begin to experience what some might call supernatural abilities. You start influencing reality in ways that seem impossible to those who are still trapped in the illusion. You start bending probability, manifesting outcomes, synchronizing with the flow of life rather than being controlled by it. And that is where true freedom begins, because the real prison is not the physical world. It is not the laws of society. It is not the limitations you have been taught to believe in. The real prison is the mind that has been programmed to accept the simulation as absolute. The real chains are the ones you cannot see, the ones that convince you that you are powerless, that you must follow the script, that you cannot rewrite your own code. But here's the secret: you can. And the moment you start doing it, the moment you start seeing results, the moment you start witnessing reality shift around you in response to your consciousness, you can never go back. You can never unsee it, because once you know, you know. The only question is, how far are you willing to go? Are you willing to test the boundaries of reality? Are you willing to challenge every belief you have ever been taught? Are you willing to let go of the idea that reality is something separate from you, and start treating it as something you are actively shaping? Because those who do this, those who embrace this knowledge, those who begin applying it in their daily lives do not just succeed, they do not just thrive, they become something else entirely. They become the architects of their own reality. They become the ones who bend the simulation instead of being bent by it. They become the ones who walk through this world with the kind of power that cannot be explained, only witnessed. And that is what they fear. That is why the system fights so hard to keep you from this knowledge. That is why they label it as nonsense, as pseudoscience, as fantasy. Because the moment enough people realize that the game can be played differently, that the rules can be rewritten, that reality is not what it seems, the illusion falls apart. And the ones who were once controlled, they become free. Not in some abstract philosophical way, not in some distant metaphysical concept. Free in the most real, tangible way possible. free from limitations, free from fear, free from the mental conditioning that has kept humanity in a state of unconscious servitude for generations. And that freedom is yours for the taking. The only question is, are you ready to wake up? Waking up isn't what you think it is. It's not a single moment of realization, not some grand revelation that suddenly changes everything. It's a process, a gradual unraveling of everything you once believed to be true, and the deeper you go, the more you start to see how much of your life has been shaped by forces you were never meant to question. Every system, every belief, every limitation you have ever known was designed to keep you asleep, to keep you playing by the rules of a game that was never made for your benefit. Because if reality is a simulation, then everything inside of it is part of the program. The education system that teaches you what to think but never how to think. The financial system that keeps you chasing money but never freedom. The media that feeds you stories, distractions, carefully curated narratives to make sure you never stop to ask the most dangerous question of all. What is this place, really? And yet, once you begin to see it, once you start recognizing the patterns, the constructs, the carefully placed limitations that have shaped your reality, you can no longer unsee them. The illusion begins to break. The walls of the simulation start to crack, and for the first time you realize that you were never just a character in someone else's game. You were meant to be the architect. But the system doesn't want you to know that. It wants you distracted, preoccupied, trapped in an endless cycle of reacting instead of creating. It keeps you locked in fear, in survival mode, constantly focused on external struggles so that you never stop to look within. Because the moment you do, the moment you start questioning the nature of the world around you, you become a problem, an anomaly, a glitch in the system. And that's when the real test begins. Because once you start waking up, the simulation pushes back. The obstacles increase. The distractions intensify. Suddenly, life feels more chaotic, more unpredictable, as if something is trying to pull you back into the illusion. And that is exactly what's happening. The system is designed to self-correct. It recognizes when a user is becoming too aware, too conscious, too powerful, and so it responds. Not with force, not with direct opposition, but with the one thing it knows will work. Doubt. Doubt is the most powerful tool of the simulation. It makes you question your own experiences, your own intuition, your own ability to influence reality. It whispers that the synchronicities were just coincidences, that the manifestations were just luck, that the moments where you saw through the illusion were nothing more than tricks of the mind. And if you believe it, if you allow yourself to be pulled back into the illusion, the simulation wins, the walls close back in, the limits become real again. But if you resist, if you push through the doubt, if you continue to challenge the rules, to experiment with the nature of reality itself, something incredible happens. The system stops fighting you, because once you prove that you are no longer bound by its rules, it has no choice but to adapt to you. And that is the key. The system is not your enemy. It is not an oppressive force designed to trap you forever. It is a framework, a structure, a canvas upon which you are meant to create, but only if you realize that you are the one holding the brush. Most people never get to this level of understanding. They spend their lives following a script they never wrote, playing a role they never chose, believing that life is happening to them instead of realizing that they are the ones shaping it. But the ones who break free, the ones who learn to interact with the simulation rather than simply exist within it, they are the ones who rewrite the code. Look at history. Every major shift, every revolution in thought, every individual who changed the course of humanity was someone who saw beyond the illusion. They questioned what others accepted. They refused to believe in limitations. They operated outside the script. And because of that, the system had no choice but to adapt to them. They became creators within the simulation, bending reality in ways that seemed impossible to those who were still asleep. And you can do the same. But first, you must let go of everything you have been taught about what is possible. You must abandon the belief that reality is solid, unchangeable, out of your control. You must start treating it as what it truly is, a responsive system, one that mirrors your consciousness, your beliefs, your expectations. This is why manifestation works, not because of some mystical force, but because the simulation itself is built to respond to the user. Your thoughts are commands. Your emotions are frequencies that shape the field around you. The moment you understand this, the moment you start applying it intentionally, reality has no choice but to shift accordingly. This is why some people seem to live lives that defy logic, why they attract wealth, success, and opportunities effortlessly. It is not because they are lucky. It is because they understand the game. They have learned how to move through the simulation in alignment with its rules, bending it rather than being bent by it. And the most powerful rule of all, the simulation is a mirror. It does not give you what you want, it gives you what you are. If you operate from fear, the simulation reflects fear. If you operate from lack, the simulation reinforces lack. But if you operate from certainty, from abundance, from the absolute knowing that reality is responding to you, then reality aligns itself to match that frequency. This is what the system does not want you to understand. This is why it works so hard to keep you in a state of doubt, of fear, of reaction rather than creation. Because the moment you stop reacting and start intentionally shaping, you are no longer a passive player in the simulation. You become a force that reshapes it. And once you reach that level, the game changes forever. So now you have a choice. You can continue living as you always have, accepting the illusion, following the script, believing that reality is something separate from you. Or you can start testing the boundaries. You can start questioning everything. You can start seeing how much of this world is waiting for you to take control. Because the system will not hand you the answers. It will not reveal itself until you force it to. But the moment you do, the moment you truly wake up, reality is no longer something that happens to you, it becomes something you create. And those who learn this, those who apply it, they are no longer just characters in the game. They become the ones who rewrite the code. There's a moment in every awakening where the illusion becomes unbearable, where everything you once believed, everything you once trusted, begins to fall apart. It feels like free-falling, like losing your grip on reality itself, because that's exactly what's happening. The old reality, the one you accepted without question, is dissolving, and in its place something else is emerging, something more fluid, more malleable, more responsive than you ever imagined. This is the threshold, the point where you decide whether to cling to the old system or step fully into the unknown. And this is where most people turn back, not because they want to, not because they don't believe, but because the truth is too much. It contradicts everything they've been taught. It challenges the very foundation of their existence, and so they retreat. They go back to the illusion, pretending they never saw behind the curtain, convincing themselves that life is simpler, easier, safer, when they play by the rules. But you are not most people, because if you were, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be listening to this. You wouldn't feel that deep, undeniable pull inside of you, that unshakable knowing that something about this world isn't right, that reality is not as solid as they claim, that you were meant for something more. And you are. But to claim that power, to step fully into the role of creator rather than character, you have to be willing to let go, to release everything you thought you knew about what is possible, to strip away the programming, the limitations, the false narratives that have kept you small. Because the only thing keeping you bound to the simulation is your belief in it. You were never truly trapped. The door has always been open. The only thing stopping you from stepping through it was the illusion that there was ever a door at all. And once you see that, once you truly accept that reality is not something external, but something you are actively shaping, you are free. Not metaphorically, not in some vague spiritual sense. Free in the most real, tangible way possible. Free from the limitations that once held you back. Free from the belief that you are powerless. Free from the illusion that life is happening to you instead of being created by you. This is why the simulation resists your awakening, because the moment you stop playing by the rules, the moment you start bending reality instead of being bent by it, you become an outlier. a variable that cannot be controlled, a force that cannot be predicted, and the system is designed to maintain order, to keep things running smoothly, to ensure that the majority of people remain asleep. But the system also has a flaw, because while it is built to maintain control, it is also built to adapt, and once you prove that you are no longer controlled by it, it no longer fights you. Instead, it shifts to accommodate you. This is why those who master the simulation move through life differently, why they attract opportunities, success, wealth, influence, not because they are lucky, but because reality itself bends to their expectations. They have reached a level of understanding where they no longer chase outcomes, they generate them. They no longer struggle against the system, they rewrite it from within. And that is where you are headed. Because the deeper you go, the more you see, and the more you see, the more you realize there are no limits. There is no script you are required to follow. There is only the reality you choose to create. So what will you do with that knowledge? Will you pretend you never saw the cracks? Will you try to forget what you now know, to shrink back into the illusion, to live as if reality is something outside of your control? Or will you step forward? Will you begin to test your power, to push against the edges of the simulation, to see just how much of this world is waiting for you to take control? Because the choice is yours. It always has been. And that is the greatest secret of all. The system is not your enemy. The illusion is not your prison. They were never meant to trap you. They were meant to challenge you, to see if you would wake up, to see if you would recognize the game for what it is, to see if you would remember who you really are. And now you do, so what happens next? That's up to you, because you are not just a part of the simulation. You are the one rewriting it.